Good morning, everyone. I am Paul Rubenstein, the Deputy Chief External Relations Officer here at the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, or LAHSA, and I want to welcome you to the 2024 Greater Los Angeles Homeless Count data release. The estimates you will see today are made possible by data points collected by thousands of volunteers who counted their unhoused neighbors back in January. We could not do it without them, and we appreciate their commitment to ending homelessness in LA County. We are grateful to be joined today by the Chair of the LAHSA Commission and the Chair of the LA County Board of Supervisors, Lindsay Horvath, and on Zoom, the Mayor of the City of Los Angeles and a LAHSA Commissioner, Karen Bass, as well as the CEO of LAHSA, Dr. Felicia Adams-Kellum, and Professor Benjamin Henwood, who leads the team at USC that helped us crunch these numbers.
Recording in progress.
You'll hear from each of them a bit later. Also here this morning are a number of our LAHSA commissioners. I'd like to thank them for their service and support as well. Our Vice Chair, Wendy Gruhl, Commissioner Melissa Chinchilla, Commissioner Yasmin Imani McMorrin, Commissioner Sasha Renee Perez, and Commissioner Amber Sheik. Before we continue, I also must acknowledge and thank our service providers. Every day, homeless service providers throughout LA County work tirelessly to bring our unhoused neighbors home. We deeply appreciate their commitment to this truly life-saving work. Next slide. The homeless count for the Los Angeles Continuum of Care is conducted in accordance with the rules and regulations established by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. LAHSA partners with experts from the University of Southern California on the data we are presenting today. And as I just mentioned, Professor Benjamin Henwood from that team is here and will speak later about their process and methodology. HUD also reviews and validates our data each year. And the homeless count is best thought of as a regional snapshot of people experiencing homelessness at a particular point in time. The statistical methods used are designed for the regional level. As jurisdictions become smaller, this more geographically specific data becomes less precise. This is the primary reason LAHSA provides population estimates only for the jurisdictions that the count's methodology is designed for: the full Los Angeles Continuum of Care, as well as the City of LA and the county's service planning areas. I will note here that the LA Continuum of Care encompasses all of LA County, except for the cities of Long Beach, Glendale, and Pasadena, which are separate continuums of care and conduct their own counts. For jurisdictions other than the LA Continuum of Care, the City of LA, and the county service planning areas, LAHSA will publish dashboards showing the community-level numbers of people, vehicles, and improvised dwellings that were counted during the count. And now, I'd like to introduce the CEO of LAHSA, Dr. Felicia Adams-Kellum, to present some key results and findings from this year's count.
Thank you, Paul, and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I would like to begin with a comment on the grants pass decision. It will be up to every city and county of Los Angeles and the Board of Supervisors, elected officials, to decide on how we move forward. But LAHSA will stay focused on ending unsheltered homelessness and speeding up how quickly we move people into permanent housing. We do not agree with criminalizing homelessness. In fact, as you will hear in a moment, the results of this year's homeless count strongly support our best practices approach that aligns all levels of government and our providers around saving lives by resolving encampments and bringing people indoors. We believe in housing and services, not arrests. And now I'll continue with my presentation. Finally, we have encouraging news. Homelessness in Los Angeles County as a whole declined by 0.27% to an estimate 75,312 people. The City of Los Angeles experienced a decrease as well, down 2.2% to an estimated 45,252 people. This figure for LA County includes results from all 4 continuums of care within the county. Next slide. This result is quite meaningful after years, 6 years in fact, of increases in homelessness. As we'll discuss later in this presentation, evidence suggests that our aligned approach and coordinated efforts to address unsheltered street homelessness are having an impact. Next slide. Notably, while the overall numbers are somewhat similar to last year, the ratio of unsheltered versus sheltered people experiencing homelessness is shifting in the direction that we want to see. The estimate for unsheltered homelessness or street homelessness in the county of Los Angeles decreased by approximately 5.1% compared with last year, while the shelter count increased by 12.7%. This is encouraging. Yes. We see similar encouraging results in the city of Los Angeles, where unsheltered or street homelessness decreased by approximately 10.4%, while the shelter count increased by 17.7%. Yes, we can celebrate that. These shifts in both the city and the county mean that this year, across our region, more people are experiencing homelessness inside, where they are safer, where they have food and showers, and better access to medical and other services. And not only did the count of people in shelter go up, but the estimate of people who are unsheltered on the streets went down. That means fewer people are struggling on our streets. This change in the city and the county is a result of unprecedented policy alignment and investments by the city, the county, state, and federal government, and of course, with the dedication of our providers. Next slide. Turning our attention to the county's 8 service planning areas, or SPAs, we see a similar trend in most SPAs. Unsheltered homelessness is down or flat, while the number of people in shelter has increased. For most of the regions showing a net increase, much of this is due to more people being in shelter, not significant growth in the number of unsheltered people. Next slide. Here we see the number of vehicles and dwellings counted in January. We see both for vehicles overall and for tents and makeshift shelters. The public will notice the effects of encampment resolution most significantly in the drop in makeshift shelters in 2024. It's profound. The numbers in this, and next slide. The numbers in this year's homeless count give us cause to feel optimistic about the direction of our homeless work across LA County. We saw in previous slides that overall there are fewer people on the street and more people in shelter moving towards permanent housing. We appear to be moving in the right direction. The shift in this year's ratio of sheltered to unsheltered is a result of coordination, great work at the forefront of our providers, LAHSA, and leaders across the city. We've been waiting for something to begin to feel more hopeful about, and we're in this moment. Next slide. In addition to looking at the count results, LAHSA took the lead in putting forth key performance indicators, or KPIs, which are showing that the improvements we are making to the rehousing system are helping us bring more people into interim housing faster. From 2022 to 2023, year over year, we're moving nearly 50% more people from the street into interim housing, and that trend is what we want to see. We're seeing a significant increase in interim housing to permanent housing placements as well, compared to previous years. During that same time frame, we moved 25% more people from interim housing into permanent housing, and that's what ends homelessness. Along with the changes that we're making to the rehousing system and making it more effective, we must bring on more units. And we're grateful for what we've seen in Measure H and Prop HHH and making a major investment in the good work. We must continue to improve the system. We must continue to improve our work and our alignment. Next slide. In addition to moving people into interim housing, the rehousing system has also gained significant momentum this year. We made a record-breaking 27,300 permanent housing placements. And at this rate, if we could stop anyone else from falling into homelessness, we could actually end homelessness in just a few years. But unfortunately, as we all know, the root causes of homelessness are as strong as ever, and more people are becoming homeless than those who are escaping it. According to LAHSA's HMIS database, in 2023, for every 100 people who exit homelessness, 120 people become homeless. And we know that this is at a minimum because HMIS doesn't necessarily capture every person who falls into homelessness. To prevent homelessness, the Los Angeles region must reverse decades of underbuilding affordable housing, help more people achieve economic stability, and address the shrinking social safety net. Our partners at the city and county are taking steps to make this happen, but all communities across the region must come together and focus their collective efforts on proven solutions to truly turn the corner. I would now like to invite Dr. Benjamin Henwood from USC up to review the methodology used to produce the results we're sharing today.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Henwood. I'm a professor at the USC Suzanne Dvorak Peck School of Social Work, where I direct our Center on Homelessness Research. My team and I, that includes Randall Kuhn at UCLA, have been partnering with LAHSA since 2017 to help produce many of the numbers that we'll be discussing today. So I wanted to give you a high-level overview of how we produce those numbers. As you've heard, our top-level number for LA County hasn't changed much. In fact, the LA County COC estimate is 71,201 individuals experiencing homelessness, which is less than a couple hundred people a difference from last year's number. And there's a margin of error of plus or minus just under 1,600 people. What has changed is the composition of the homeless population. The shelter count number you see here, it's not an estimate. It's an actual record of the number of people recorded to be in shelter beds the night of the count. And we see that the shelter numbers have increased and are taking up more of the pie, comprising over 30% as opposed to 27% last year. The unsheltered counts of youth and adults are estimates and why we include a margin of error, and they have both decreased and make up less of the overall population this year. Youth unsheltered homelessness estimates, which has its own methodology as a survey-based count conducted mostly by youth homeless service providers, is based on a sample of census tracts that are covered throughout the county. The youth estimates now make up under 2% of the overall population as opposed to 3% last year. Unsheltered adult estimates are down this year and now make up approximately 2/3 of the overall population this year as opposed to 70% last year. Now, this estimate comes from two separate activities. The one activity that most of you are familiar with is the counting done by volunteers and represents the backbone of the estimates, as they are a complete enumeration of the county. This provides a count of actual people that were witnessed to be unsheltered on the night of the count, or the nights of the count, but also includes counts of different places that people inhabit, including tents, makeshift shelters, and vehicles. What our team then does is turn these counts of dwellings into an estimate of people based on survey data that we collect with a sample of about 4,000 people among the unsheltered population. The data is collected between December and March each year by canvassing randomly selected census tracts across the country, across the county, and interviewing people to find out about their basic demographic information and their history. When we talk to persons living in dwellings that are counted by the volunteers, we ask them how many other people stayed with them when they were in those dwellings. This provides us an average number of people living in each dwelling. If you could go to the next slide. So for those of you who are visual learners, as you will see this year, volunteers counted 11,717 people on the nights of the count, and along with 21,288 dwellings that appear to have people living in them. Based on people we interviewed, we found that on average there were 1.7 people in each of those dwelling types, which is a little bit higher than what we found last year. When you estimate, hence we estimate that there were 36,499 people living in those 21,288 dwellings. So when we combine that estimate with the number of people who were actually counted, we get our overall unsheltered adult population estimate, plus or minus 1,600 people, because again, this is an estimate. I know that was pretty quick. Hopefully you were able to follow that, but I'll be here after if you have questions about the methodology. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Henwood. Next slide. This year's results continue to show that the legacy of systemic racism results in a vastly disproportionate number of Black people experiencing homelessness. And the rise in Latinos experiencing homelessness that we first observed a few years ago has persisted. Our system must remain committed to addressing these troubling patterns by implementing the findings of the Ad Hoc Committee on Black People Experiencing Homelessness and ensuring the success of the work of the current task force on Latinx people experiencing homelessness. Next slide. Last year's UCSF study said that economics plays a significant role in the persistent inflow of people into homelessness. This year, that statement is supported by the results of our own demographic survey, which tells us that most of the unsheltered population that has experienced homelessness for less than a year cite economic hardship as one of their main reasons for falling into homelessness. Across the board in LA County, rents continue to be too high for far too many people. According to the California Housing Partnership, nearly 500,000 low-income households in LA County do not have access to an affordable home. The average rent for a 2-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles County is around $2,500. That means renters in LA County need to earn just over about $100,000 a year to afford a 2-bedroom home. People who are struggling don't make that kind of money. This significant gap is a big reason that eviction filings reached a decade high in LA last year, which is a measure of how many people are struggling to make ends meet and to pay their rent, not to mention the end of most COVID protections. Next slide. The new LAHSA is making the shifts necessary to improve the rehousing system, and we are committed to change and innovation. One important innovation that will help us bring more people home is master leasing. LAHSA is leasing entire buildings, which allows us to fully occupy buildings with people in just 3 to 5 days, compared to the past average of 120 days to get to full occupancy. One important change in our work on the streets is focusing on the most vulnerable people who are already connected with the rehousing system, that they're document ready and live in the same region as the new building that they are close to moving into or that is opening. We want to get better at capturing and tracking our data. Lord knows LAHSA has to get better at that. So we can determine which interventions are working. In fact, today LAHSA will begin publishing online dashboards where everyone will be able to follow the rehousing system's progress. We are committed to transparency. And we're committed to data-driven processes. And we look forward to seeing the benefits of this approach as we see people rebuild their lives. Next slide. To stay on this path, we must continue to lock arms and work together toward our common goal, as Mayor Bass has said. We must stay focused on ending unsheltered homelessness and ensure we are addressing it with an emphasis on racial equity and housing justice. Our partners are critical to this work, starting with our amazing service providers. We're also grateful for our collaboration with the City of Los Angeles, including Mayor Bass and the City Council, the LA County Board of Supervisors, led by Chair Horvath, and the County CEO's Homeless Initiative. The State of California, led by Governor Newsom, and our friends at the federal government, including the Biden-Harris administration, All Inside Initiative, the Interagency Council on Homelessness, and our partners at HUD. We're celebrating a little bit, but we still have a long, long way to go. The results of this year's count give us hope, but we can't let up. There are far, far too many people living outdoors, struggling every day. I'd like to thank you again for being here. And now I would like to invite my chair, Board of Supervisors, and LAHSA Commissioner Lindsay Horvath.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Adams-Kellum, and all of our community and media partners who are gathered here this morning. We know today is an important day. This year's point in time count shows that we are finally moving in the right direction. Our coordinated emergency response to end our homelessness crisis is beginning to show improvement. This demonstrates that transparency, accountability, and collaboration are winning strategies. We have moved away from finger pointing and instead towards true partnership. This is what we can achieve when we work together. Our all hands on deck approach and our encampment resolution programs Inside Safe and Pathway Home are all game changers. More people are sheltered this year because we've funded more beds. When you fund them, people use the help. In 2023, we brought an unprecedented 28,000 people inside. This is 28,000 lives improved. And that doesn't even include all the people we've prevented from falling into homelessness through rental subsidies and legal protections. While we have proven our ability to get people into housing, we must continue to improve our response to match the scale of this humanitarian crisis. This is not victory, it is validation. Validation that our strategy is working, and now we must double down. We must continue to identify where our systems are failing us so we can fix what is broken. While we housed 28,000 people last year, more than 44,000 eviction cases were filed in Los Angeles County alone. This clearly demonstrates the problem at hand. We cannot solve this crisis with tens of thousands of people at risk of losing their homes every year. We need to prevent all people from becoming unhoused in the first place. This requires expanded tenant protections and programs to keep people in the housing they're already in. We must move people out of interim housing and into permanent housing faster. We must address the number of older adults who are falling into homelessness in increasing numbers. We must focus on children and families and immigrants and all of the very unique supports that they need and deserve. We must deepen our partnerships to address the crisis of mental health and substance use disorder from the local to the federal levels. And importantly, we must continue to reform and scrutinize the way we do things to hold ourselves accountable to the work. We need consistent and real-time data because we know the point-in-time count does not tell the whole story. It took decades for the crisis to reach this level, and it will take sustained effort to fully overcome it. With the positive trends we're seeing, we know that what we're doing is working. We know what to do, and we have no time to waste. Unfortunately, this morning's Supreme Court grants pass ruling greenlights the criminalization of homelessness. This gut punch of a decision comes on the day we unveil our point-in-time count progress. This is unconscionable, and it is not an effective solution. We know what works in Los Angeles County: partnership, accountability, scrutinizing the status quo, and aligning all resources. It is not arrest. It is not pushing people from community to community. As chair of LAHSA and the Board of Supervisors, I want to be crystal clear. The criminalization of homelessness and poverty is dangerous. It does not work, and it will not stand in Los Angeles County. This is a time to unite efforts to continue positive momentum we have built over the last year and a half. Let's prove that humane approaches are what work. Let's continue on the path of us being in it all together. I want to thank my fellow LAHSA commissioners who are here, as well as my LA County Supervisor Board colleagues, which I must note are all women. Also, Hafsa is here, among other titles. She is my colleague on the LA County Regional Executive Committee on Regional Homeless Alignment. I know her name. I don't know this one. But I also want to thank the service providers, the council offices that are present here, and everyone who has joined us today. And now it is my honor and pleasure to welcome my friend and partner in this work, Mayor Karen Bass.
Good morning, everyone. And let me join in with my colleague, our chair of the Board of Supervisors and of the LAHSA Commission, Lindsay Horvath. It has been great working with you this year, and I want to join in and thank all of the people who do this work day in and day out, and especially the individual organizations, the social service providers that take care of the people when we get them off the street. So this is a milestone moment for Los Angeles. After years and years of the count going up, finally we see a change. We have made change and we've moved LA in a new direction, and we can say that homelessness is down. I came into office to move us away from the way things had always been done. I said we would make change and act with urgency and purpose. I said we would put the finger pointing aside and work together, and we did. These numbers represent a change in the trajectory of our entire city and our entire region, and it is a new direction for Los Angeles, and a part of that new direction is new leadership. And let me just thank so much Dr. Felicia Adams-Kellum for her leadership of LAHSA, inheriting an organization that needed great change, and she has undertaken and led that effort. Year after year, we watched homelessness go up and up The homelessness count skyrocketed 80% since 2015. It was up 10% in the last count. And today I can join in sharing that the trend has reversed, a 12% swing from the last count. Now make no mistake, we have a very, very long way to go, but I know that many Angelenos have felt that the situation was hopeless. Today we know that we can and we will bring people inside and move LA in a different direction. When Supervisor Horvath and I took office, we confronted a deeply entrenched system. With the help of the people in this room and so many others, we are shattering the old way of doing things, and I have to say we're just getting started. I've made no secret about my focus on homelessness, but it isn't just about saving the lives of those on the street. Obviously, that is number one and most important, but it's also about keeping customers from being driven away from small businesses and restaurants. It's about keeping and attracting office tenants and large employers. It's about making sure kids can walk to school and people can walk their dogs without having to step around encampments. It's about making sure people have roofs over their head instead of seeking refuge in our parks, our libraries, and our metro system. As I said, we have a long way to go, but we have a strategy that is taking new and urgent action. I remember Venice near Gold's Gym in Hollywood outside of Selma Elementary School, in the Valley and in South LA. Angelenos can see the difference as people are moving inside and encampments are coming down. We are taking unprecedented action on prevention, directly assisting tenants at risk of losing their homes. It's strategic, cost-effective, and we've helped thousands of people so far. And I would say that this is one area. And as far as I know, there is no example of how we should prevent homelessness in the country that has been demonstrated to work. But we are breaking new ground through the Mayor's Fund in developing a model to prevent people from falling into homelessness. And hopefully in the next year, we'll be able to see those results as well. We know that we are moving away from a status quo where the fire department and police department are responding to calls related to homelessness that they're not going to have to do when we bring people off the street. LA Sanitation and Street Services are able to move more Angelenos when more Angelenos are inside. We can keep our streets cleaner. That affects all of us. It wastes our tax dollars, impacts our emergency services, and it perpetuates a cycle that leads to more homelessness. But I know that we can change this. These numbers show that we can change this. There is nothing we cannot do by taking on the status quo, putting politics aside, and rolling up our sleeves to work together. If you still have doubts, remember 2023 was the year when we saw so many COVID programs disappear. Many of us were predicting a dramatic increase in homelessness as funding and programs expired. I remember saying that here at the county, that we were going to do everything we could to get people off the street, but that we shouldn't be surprised if the numbers went up because of all of the protections going away. But it didn't happen. And so to everyone who has been a part of this movement to move LA in a new direction, thank you. The hard work is just beginning.